out here at Bob Boozer Field, and joining me right now is senior defensive end for the Brockport Golden Eagle football team, Chris Koeher. And Chris, we know what you've done on the field and a lot of accolades that have come with it, but today, talking about something a lot bigger than football, and I'm sure you would wholeheartedly agree with that. You experienced something about 9 months ago, January 24th, 2010, that not many people want to deal with, or for that point, have to deal with, especially at your age. And that is partaking in the funeral of your best friend. And talking about Lance Corporal Zach Smith. And Zach, unfortunately, died in the line of duty in Afghanistan about 9 months ago. And the articles and papers will tell you what kind of kid Zach was, what kind of man he was. Who was Zach Smith to Chris Koehler?
Zach to me was somebody that I grew up with. I knew him since since he was a newborn. I'm a year older than Zach, but we went to the same daycare. Our families are real tight. Zach's family is like a second family to me. And my sisters we went to the same daycare center, so my sisters knew his older brother and his mom and dad. But when Zach was there, and as a young kid, he was just my best friend right off the bat. Somebody that I grew up with, and when I was about 12 years old, I think his family moved the street behind me. So we were always close, always going to school together, always playing sports together, just doing everything together. And Zach to me was just the ultimate best friend, just the person that I think everybody should have as a friend. He was just a great kid. He was just a real special person, really cared about his family, always put his family first. Just always cared about the people in his life, and even the people that were kind of underdogs and people didn't really know too much of, he always kind of took them under his wing. We always kind of joke and tell funny stories about Zach, but he was always the kind of guy who would, if he was picking a football team and he had to pick a squad, he would always pick the kid that nobody else would think to pick, and just for the heck of it, and just because he was that kind of guy. But he was just a special person, and he still makes an impact on people's lives to this day. And he's always just going to be my best friend. I think about him every single day, and I try to live life like him and just be positive and everything that he does.
And you mentioned growing up, right from diapers all the way to high school. You did everything together. You played football together, right through Cornell High School. And you talk about life decisions. You come to Brockport to play football. He goes to the Marines. A very big decision. What was that conversation like when he decided he was going to the Marines, you were going to Brockport, that last time you saw each other in person before you both departed your separate ways?
I think I always knew about Zach going to the Marines. He'd always kind of hinted it towards the end of his high school career. I think Zach could have gotten into a college if he wanted to, but school wasn't, his favorite thing, just like any other high school kid. But he would always think about the Marines and always kind of talk about it. And it was something he wanted to do. His uncle was a Marine, and I think he kind of looked up to his uncle Matt. And the more Zach grew up, you could just see it in himself. I think he was cut out for the Marines. A lot of kids aren't going into college or whatever they do after high school. I think you get a lot of kids that just don't know what they're going to do with the rest of their lives. But Zach was the kind of kid that always knew what he wanted to do, and he knew right from the start he wanted to be a Marine. It was either that or a state trooper, because his dad's a state trooper. And but he knew what he wanted to do, and he had that discipline that not a lot of kids have going in, I think. And but I'd always kind of prepared myself knowing that that's what he was going to do. I had a bunch of other friends that I graduated with that were in the Marines, and I just kind of knew what to expect with him going to boot camp and just being a little different, a little bit of a personality change. But I prepared myself for that, just knowing that I wouldn't see him a lot. He'd be off at boot camp, he'd probably be deployed. But I told him, I just said, I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're doing what you want to do, and you're going to be a hell of a Marine, because that's the kind of person he is. He was brought up from a family that's just awesome. Everything they do is first class, and he's just a disciplined, focused kid who knew what he wanted to do. So,
at any point during that process, were you ever thinking, or did you ever say to him, hey, why the Marines? You can go to college, you can do something else. Or were you always on board, hey, this is your decision, support you 100%?
In the back of my mind, I kind of thought that I wish you would do something else, just because I know how the service is, I know how the military is, and I've seen guys come back and they're just totally different, and I didn't want that to happen to Zach. But you know, the whole time he was thinking about it, I was on board. I'd support any of my friends in what they do, and you know, he was gonna do it, so I wasn't gonna stop him. You know, so I just supported him. But right before he left for boot camp, it kind of hit me hard, and I had a long talk with him on his back deck before he left, and I just said, "Are you sure you want to do this? I know you've already signed all the papers. You're ready to go." I think he was leaving the next day for Paris Island, and but I said to him, I said, "Hey, you know, are you sure this is what you want to do?" And he said, "Absolutely." He said, "I've been thinking about this for a long time," and so he knew what he was doing, and I support him 100%. And I'm glad he was a Marine. I'm glad everything he did was for a reason. So.
And I mentioned January 24th. Go back to January 24th, about 9 months ago, and Sunday morning, you get a phone call from a friend. Did you know something was wrong immediately?
Yeah, I could just kind of tell by the tone of their voice that something was wrong. I didn't know what was going on, but they just said, you know, "I'm here for you if you need anything." And so I knew something terrible had happened. First thing that came to my mind was family. I just hoped something didn't happen to my family. And I called my mom and dad, and they knew of nothing. They said, I haven't heard anything that's going on. But you could also tell that they knew something, you know, something happened by the tone of my voice, because I was real concerned. So after, you know, calling a few of my friends who had already knew, they broke the news to me. And definitely, I hope it is the hardest day of my life when I look back on it. And it was just something you never want to hear. You never want to get that phone call, especially with a best friend. But you know, it's you know. But I went right back home, and I was there for his family, and I mean, that's all we could do at that point. So.
You get that kind of news, your brain going every which direction. How do you make sense of it all?
It was tough. It was the day before the spring semester of last year, and I mean, at that point I was focused on school, and I was ready for my classes, and I was ready to start winter workouts for footballs. And then you get that phone call, and life changes just like that. And I was the only one in my apartment at the time, and I just remember sitting on my couch just thinking, why is this happening, you know? And it's just not fair. And at first it just didn't make sense, and I didn't think it was true. For some reason, I just think this isn't happening right now. It was like a bad dream. But you know, reality set in, and my first thought was, I got to be there for his family, because that was the first thing I had told him when he left. I said to him, I'll always be there for your family, even when you're gone. I mean, meaning when he's at boot camp and when he's deployed, because his family's going to miss him, and you know, and his mom's always used to having him home and having him and his brother and his little sister home. But I told him that. I said, I'm always going to be there for your family if they need anything. And Zach had just gotten married 6 months before he was deployed to Afghanistan, so he had a 19-year-old wife back at home. And I told him, I said, you know, if she ever needed anything, I'd be right there for her. So I kind of took it upon myself to just be there for his family and just try to be strong for them, you know, because I was having a hard time being strong for myself. So I just figured I'd do it for them. And but it was definitely the hardest day I've ever had in my life. And God, I just hope nothing ever like that happens again to anyone. So.